Welcome everybody to the OSN Showcase for September. It's going to be on skills collaboratives, building expansive and inclusive skills libraries. We're going to go ahead and get started now. So I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us today. We know that time is precious and we're very grateful that you're spending an hour with us. So with that being said, let me just take care of a little bit of housekeeping. This is set up as a WebEx event, so unfortunately, we can't hear you, but we can see your questions in the chat. So if you have any comments or questions that you want to share with the panelists, please place those into the chat and we'll do our best at the end of the presentation to make sure that those are addressed. And if we don't have answers right then and there, we'll be able to follow up with you later. So with that being said, let's get started.
All right. Thank you, Christian, for kicking us off. And also just wanted to say a big thank you from Walmart Foundation for the work that they've done in supporting the Open Skills Network through funding and just general support and general greatness. And we're really happy to have them as part of this project. So thank you to Walmart Foundation. So I'm Sarah DeMark. I'm the Interim Executive Director for the Open Skills Network. I'm a part of Western Governors University as well, and we are joined by Kacey Thorne, who's our Director of Skills Architecture at WGU, and Colin Reynolds, who's our VP of Learning from the Learning Economy Foundation, and so grateful to have you two as part of this webinar as well. So thank you for joining. This is just a quick agenda of some of the things that we're going to chat about today. I think the big piece is really talking about how do you get involved in starting to do work with the OSN? How do you start to get involved in creating your own open skills libraries and starting to work with the open skills management toolset? And we're going to talk to you about how you can do just that today. So for some of you that might be new to our Open Skills Network, you might be wondering what we're all about. So we are an open coalition of employers, education providers, military, workforce development, state and federal institutions looking to advance skills-based education and hiring. What our focus is on creating a common skills language that is open, accessible, machine actionable, and to really start to unlock our ability to leverage skills in a collaborative way. And by doing this, we fully believe that this will help improve equity for access to opportunity for individuals that are underserved and overlooked. So Kacey, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what a rich skill descriptor is?
I'd love to. Thanks, Sarah. So some of you who have been with OSN for a while now are familiar with rich skills descriptors, but we'll do a brief overview here for all of the exciting new attendees that we have this month. So a rich skills descriptor is, I like to think of it as a powerful little data package that structures skills data and adds context to what a particular skill looks like as applied for different job roles in different sectors. The RSD is a machine readable, searchable data schema that we can use to author skills and open skills libraries and have it be consumable and readable by machines and humans alike. It provides the context behind a skill, giving us a common definition or a common understanding of what the demonstration of that skill looks like in a particular occupation. For example, we all know that communication is a skill that's in high demand across sectors and employers, but what it looks like in application for a nurse versus a software engineer versus an air traffic controller are all very different. And what the rich skills descriptor does is it allows for us to get at that richer context of a skill for those different occupations and job roles. It also facilitates interoperability within credentials, education and training, job profiles, and learner records. We have seen some of the initial applications of rich skills descriptors being embedded into job descriptions, into curriculum, into digital credentials, that what it can really do is provide a frame and a common language for us to understand when we're comparing apples to apples. How does this credential compare to another one? How might this job profile align to the skill development that I would be getting as part of this credentialing program, et cetera? So it's really establishing a shared language between employers, education providers, in a way that we haven't had before. So I think, Sarah, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the Open Skills Management tool and how it works with rich skills descriptors?
Happy to, and thank you for providing the context on those rich skills descriptors, because the Open Skills Management tool is where we're really going to be able to house those, share those, and to really start to facilitate the use of open skills libraries. So this is an open source tool set that the team at WGU in conjunction with Concentric Sky has built. We will be releasing the code for this management tool in the short term, but really wanted to provide a little bit of context in terms of like what this is and sort of what this means in terms of our next set of collaborative projects. And so one of the real benefits of having this open skills management tool is to be able to collect all of these open skills libraries that can then be shared and used and reused across a lot of different opportunities. So whether you would like to use an employer's open skills library for use in your education institution, or whether you are trying to map to the open skills that have been defined, as part of a workforce development or military institution. The idea is to be able to make these open, make these transparent, and to make these shareable and usable across a variety of different organizations. And so the Open Skills Management tool will allow for that, and to be able to allow for that sharing and adoption to be able to happen across different entities. So we're really excited to be able to share this tool as a part of the collaborative projects. So coming off of like a very successful series of spring pilots, and I think many of you on this call were participating in those, so glad you're still here with us. We're starting to think about like, how do we continue like this momentum? How do we continue to drive the adoption of open skills and being able to publish open skills libraries? And so we talked a lot about this because it's not a pilot anymore. The pilots that we did in the spring really started to vet out whether this syntax for the rich skills descriptors was the right syntax, whether or not our open skills management tool, had all of the features and met the needs of being able to move this work forward. And so we're excited in that we're not calling these pilots for the fall, but we're actually calling these skills collaboratives. We felt like we did a lot of that proving out and testing in the spring. So excited to really drive that work forward. So if you go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about how we are planning to structure these moving forward into the fall. And Kacey, do you want to take this next few slides?
Sure. So the spring pilots were extremely successful for the purposes that Sarah outlined. We really wanted to pressure test the RSD schema. We wanted to pressure test the open skills management tool for different use cases. And now that those are complete, and the really exciting thing about those pilots was we learned a lot. It also resulted in the first open skills libraries to market, which is really exciting. And now we need to really get some momentum going to move the skills ecosystem forward and to really start tapping into some of the innovation surrounding how we can actually implement and use rich skills descriptor data. So these collaborative projects are the next steps to the learnings that we had from the spring pilots. And we're really looking at this as a next step with momentum projects. How can we now drive this forward and start to get some of this really powerful open skills data into the ecosystem collaboratively, meaningfully, and how can we start exploring some of the known and unknown use cases for RSD implementation. So some of the goals that we have for the skills collaboratives, the first would be to develop RSD libraries to publish for open use. It's difficult to use RSD data without RSD data to be able to leverage. So we are going to be exploring additional libraries that can be published and built through these collaborative projects. We also want to explore different use cases for the implementation of RSD data. Some of the use cases that we have seen in our own application at WGU is there's integration into open badges, into CTDL ASN for the credential registry. What might RSD data look like and how can it be leveraged within HRIS systems to make job applications or requisitions more clear and make the hiring process more effective? We've seen some really great use cases in learning and employment record applications. So I think we're just starting to tap the surface of what the innovations in RSD applications can be. And so we're excited to explore additional use cases through some of these collaboratives. We also want to start working towards best practices for both developing RSDs and for implementing RSDs, and to, as an OSN community, start building out some collateral that can help other organizations, no matter where they are, get started with open skills, both in authoring or using that really rich data set. And then we're looking to flourish our RSDs and the implementation of open skills and explore additional technology needs that might be there for us to really make this a cohesive ecosystem where this open skills data can do everything that we imagine that it can do, and exploring other techniques that might be there to make that happen. So the timeline for these skills collaboratives is exciting to me. Our pilots were a bit more condensed. It was a bit fast and furious, and those of you that participated, we heard you. And the feedback that you provided at the end of those pilots has really informed the scoping and the timeline for these collaboratives. So we're looking for October to really be a time for organizations who are interested in standing up a collaborative to start to develop your proposal, to pull your team together, and to start working out the details of the application that you'll be submitting. In November is when we're targeting a due date for the applications, as well as the announcements of the OSN sponsored collaboratives, the applications that we are able to, as a community, support. And then on the 15th is when we'll begin onboarding those collaborative projects, hosting like an initial getting you all of the resources that you need to start kicking off your projects in the coming months. For December, we're really using it. This is a time we recognize that it is right in the middle of the holiday season. And so we are using that month for initial work and team development for your individual collaboratives to start kind of rallying, building excitement, and getting ready to hit the ground running starting in January. It's a new year, new skills. So we'll have that formal kickoff January 5th. And then in February, we're targeting a midpoint check-in where we want to hear from each of the collaboratives to see how things are going. It will be an opportunity to really amplify the work of these projects and make sure that we are shouting it from the rooftops, the successes that these collaboratives are having in the space. And then the pilots will wrap up in March with a final presentation and report out from our collaboratives. And again, an opportunity to really share some of the innovation, the incredible work that we know will be going into these. And we want to make sure that the organizations who are participating are recognized and are getting that opportunity to share out their work. So it is a bit of a broader timeline than we have for our pilots. We're really excited about this and believe that it will give you all who are interested in submitting a project the time that you need to make it successful and thorough. So for the collaborative's design, each proposed collaborative will have the opportunity to submit an online proposal that will detail the scope, deliverable, who the participants are. So there will be an online form that we'll distribute for you to submit a project proposal. We'll need each project to identify a lead who will be responsible for your meeting coordination, facilitation, and overall progress. So each collaborative will need to identify who that is that they want leading that charge for their particular project. Some approaches to consider as you're thinking about your proposal is, what is the maturity of your organization and team in terms of skills library development, skills data usage, and what is it exactly that you are wanting to achieve with the collaborative project that's going to be a benefit both to the ecosystem but also to your organizations. What level of RSD understanding and creation might you have as an organization? Are you one of our early pilot participants who it's been there, done that? You are familiar with authoring RSDs and know what that looks like? Or are you brand new to the RSD development process? All levels of sophistication in terms of experience with RSD authoring are welcome and encouraged. And then what kind of technical support might you need for your pilots? Are you looking to utilize RSD data? Are you wanting to publish a library to an existing instance of OSMT? Or are you as an organization interested in potentially being one of the early adopters to stand up your own OSMT instance? So think about these things as you're working through your proposal. We're targeting 3 specific categories for the collaborative designs, and there was a lot of interest in the pilots the last time around. And so we are, with these collaboratives, really trying to target in the scope of what we're trying to achieve with this particular OSN project. So the first would be a category of just general RSD library development. So working to author skills in RSD format and publish them using either an independent or shared instance of OSMT so that we can start getting more organizations contributing rich skills descriptor data for use into the ecosystem. That's super important. The next one will be RSD implementation projects. So do you have RSD data published already, or did you see some existing RSD data from the initial pilots that you could leverage to start to embed or use in digital credentialing, in job description authoring? I think there is, if I need to think of like an area that is ripe for innovation, this is it. I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of innovations around the use of RSD data. And so we're excited to see what kinds of collaboratives that you all have in mind and can dream up for this time around for the use of RSD data. And then the last one is we will actually be supporting a limited number of collaboratives for organizations who are interested in actually standing up their own instance of the Open Skills Management tool. One that you can own, host your own internal skills library, and publish to the open skills ecosystem through that instance. So that's another scope of the project. So as we were talking about these 3 different buckets, it's also important to keep in mind that through this collaborative process, it's sort of a Venn diagram in terms of the buckets. You may, as you're submitting an application, be interested in both authoring new RSDs to contribute to the ecosystem, as well as using that RSD data in some kind of application as well for your project. So that very well could be a collaborative that sits at the intersection of those 2. You might be interested in standing up your own instance of OSMT and then authoring a skills library through your own instance, and that's more than fine as well. You might be an organization who wants to leverage OSN's instance of OSMT to publish a library, and that is on the table also. The sweet spot is right in the middle. When we start thinking about the instances of OSMT, how you can author and maintain your own RSD libraries that other people within the ecosystem can also use, and that you're actively using that RSD data to drive skills-based hiring and education forward for your organizations. So Think of these collaboratives as they can be buckets, they can be part of a Venn diagram where there might be intersections between some of them. And you might have one that's right at that sweet spot in the middle, and that's wonderful. That's what we're aiming for. So why join these collaboratives? You're not alone in the journey. And there is a support system through the Open Skills Network as part of a sanctioned collaborative that you will have access to. The first one would be access to our WGU Skills Architecture team for collaboration and assistance as needed. We have been in the game with RSDs for a while now, and they can help serve as subject matter experts as you explore authoring your own RSDs and also using them for your particular use cases. There's also a shared instance of the Open Skills Management tool that OSN is supporting right now. And so if you have interest in using that instance to publish your open skills data, that is something that's on the table as well for these sponsored collaboratives. We will also have project coordination and facilitation support through our friends at Learning Economy Foundation. And then technical support as well along the way. If you are an organization who is interested in setting up your own instance of OSMT, there will be a few projects where we will be able to include some additional technical support as you undertake that effort. So there is absolutely benefit to joining the OSN as one of these collaboratives. But we also want to message that any organization that wants to get started using open skills can do it. These are just some of the benefits to being able to do it through a OSN sponsored collaborative project. And I think this is where I turn it over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Kacey, and thank you, Sarah. I'm Colin Reynolds with Learning Economy Foundation, and we are thrilled to be supporting the work of the Open Skills Network through the collaborative projects. We learned a tremendous amount in the spring through our work with the pilots, and many of the familiar names that are in attendance here today. We're excited to see you back. And for those that are new, we at Learning Economy support all of these projects and collaboratives through a variety of ways, which many are listed here on the screen. But what we really help to do, in addition to onboard and support the application process, is to help facilitate the collaboration and the continued development of everything that you've heard here so far from Sarah and Kacey. There's a range of maturity in project applications that will come through, from those that are just getting their heads wrapped around skills development and what rich skill descriptors are, to those that, as you can see in the chat, are sharing some of the ways that they are trying to implement and crosswalking the RSDs in other implementations across the ecosystem. So for us at Learning Economy, I'm here on behalf of Taylor Kendall, Duncan Cox, Danielle Saunders, who is a new member who will be supporting some of this work. We really step into this space to help bring some alignment and continuity between the work that you and your organization might be doing or hoping to do with the larger ecosystem and the larger market that's out there. For the application process, on the next slide, the applications will go live soon, and everybody that has registered will be notified. The application will be published on the Open Skills website. It'll also be disseminated through email. And those applications will stay open for the whole month of October and with a deadline of November 1st. So those that are applying, as you heard throughout this presentation, you should be focusing on a number of things, including the members of your team, a project lead, and really what some of your use cases and implementation strategies are for your project team. There will be a variety of groups coming in at a spectrum of maturity. And so the application, have a look at it, read through to get a better sense of what it is you're looking for with your organization and the teams that you represent, and what the outcomes are and how those align with the Open Skills Network. Ultimately, the development of rich skill descriptors published through the Open Skills Management tool and implementing into the broader ecosystem are the goals of these collaborative projects. And we at Learning Economy are helping to support all of our collaborative projects in reaching those milestones and publishing those skills into the larger network. Winners, applicants that are selected kind of feel like winners to me because we get to spend a lot of time with you and support you all along the way. Will be due on November, or will be announced on November 8th. So building your team, and this is really, I think many individuals are going through the chat here and connecting, but that's really something you should spend some time thinking about. Many of you have a team that you are ready to apply with, but if you're curious about who you should be considering and including in part of your application, check out the OSN website for potential collaborators. There is a page that has a list of partners that are there. Connect with people in the chat here. Connect and have conversation with people in any form. I think there are a number of working groups out there, including the T3 Innovation Network, the IEEE ILR working group, among others that are doing this work right now and are constantly looking for people to collaborate with. So start putting out some feelers, asking questions, and just being curious is a great place to start. If you don't know where your team might be in terms of maturity, have a look at that application and go through some of those questions and start to identify where you think you are. And of course, we will reach out and work with groups that have any questions. You can always send inquiries to the Open Skills Network as well. Ultimately, the best applications are ones that have a clear purpose and have clear goals identified for their use cases and for their implementation strategies. So take some time to really think that through and get a partner or two to review that application and talk about how you actually hope to impact the end users and the stakeholders that you're applying on behalf of. The timeline that we are working with, we learned a ton in the spring with the pilots, and thank you to everybody who is returning for all the feedback that you shared. Learning Economy was thrilled to be able to aggregate all that feedback, inform the OSN, and hope to create a process that is more reflective of the goals and allows for the time that we really need to produce quality content and allow opportunity to integrate into the larger ecosystem. So we've expanded the timeline to make more space and time for the onboarding process and the building of teams, which is happening mostly through the months of November and December. And then we'll take a little break for the holidays and come back with the new skills, new year in January with our formal kickoff. And once we kick off, that's when a lot of the real work will begin. And depending on where your team would be in its maturity process, that could be when you start really describing and defining your skills. It could be when you are starting to build the RSDs and prepare them for upload into the Open Skills Management tool, or that could be the time where your team actually starts to publish or attempt to stand up your own instance of OSMT. All of those things that I just said, Learning Economy is helping to support along the way. We have partnered with OSN, we have partnered with the skills architects and everybody to make sure that whatever questions you have, whatever needs you have, that will be supported throughout the whole process. And that really, the work really begins in January. In February, we have a midpoint check-in where we really highlight a lot of the work that's happened so far, start to really look at what our end goals will be and where we are in terms of reaching our end goals. I think we used milestones previously, but each team is different and each team works at a different pace. And so we want to be realistic with you and your team about where you are in the process. And that's what that midpoint check-in is really for. At the end, in March, we start to share out and report out everything that's happened, all of the wonderful progress we've made, and highlight some of the successes and some of the challenges that have happened in order to inform the process, because we'll continue to do this and continue to support, and the OSN wants to build off of all the work that these collaboratives have done. For those of you that attended the Skills Summit this summer, there will be a similar sort of presentation and sharing out to highlight all the wonderful work that will be done by the end of this project timeline. And I think now I'm handing it back to Sarah to wrap up with some final thoughts. But before I do that, I just want to say that Learning Economy, we are super excited to be back involved with this. And if you're curious about anything or have any inquiries about the support that we offer, feel free to reach out to us as well. Anyone on the team will be able to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Colin. And yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to Learning Economy Foundation. You guys were really great partners for the spring pilot series. We learned a lot together. And so I know that this fall collaborative project is going to be really successful. So thanks for your continued partnership. So just a couple things, we will have this presentation posted on the website. You can see the link there. So if there is information you want to re-review or share this out with potential institutions that you might want to partner with, that maybe you want a little bit more context in terms of what this is all about, please feel free to share the link to the webinar. You'll also find information in the application on the website as well, which will also provide additional context in terms of what pilots would make great pilots, and starting to really think about like organizational readiness as well. But as was mentioned, we really do want to make this a somewhat low bar for entry. So we are here to help you make this into a successful project as well. So what libraries can you imagine building? There's a couple different opportunities here, and I think Naomi put this in the chat as well, is there are going to probably be some collaborative projects that are developing skills from scratch. There will probably be some collaboratives that have existing libraries that want to publish it within the Open Skills Management tool and collaborate on the refinement of libraries. So this does not have to be a situation where you're having to build something from scratch. There may be opportunities to partner with organizations to publish and refine the library as well. So if you are at a point in saying, you know what, cyber is really important to us, we're not at the point organizationally where we're ready to develop our own open skills library, but would love to partner with an organization that is moving in that direction, fantastic. And so if you have thoughts or ideas, things that you would like to get involved in, and you're wondering if other people have a similar interest, please reach out through the Open Skills Network. Colin generously said you could reach out to him or to individuals at Learning Economy as well. So if you have some ideas, don't hesitate to reach out. You might have an awesome team in mind, or you might want us to see if hey, are there other organizations that might be interested in doing something similar? We might have some things that we've heard or things that we know that might help you build a great team as well. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity. Thank you, Kacey, for laying out all of the different sort of projects that you can get involved in. So I think there's a lot of different things that you can do depending on where you are as an organization and the team that you're putting together. So with that, I know there's lots of active chat going on. I'm watching it, but maybe Christian, I'll pass that off to you to maybe see if you can organize us a little bit more in terms of answering some of those questions.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to start with some of the first questions that came in, and I'm going to throw this one to Kacey first. Mark asked, the case standard can support RSD. Is the plan to continue to leverage case in the future for OSN and RSDs?
Yeah, I think it's one of the options that organizations have as they're using their RSD data. And I think that's a perfect opportunity for exploration in the use case pilots. Is what is it like to have RSD data? What are the use cases in which that data would be used and published via case, and how is it being implemented? So the whole idea with the RSD schema and this open data is that it can be leveraged within case, within CLR, within CTDL. And I think we're just, again, that's an area where we're just scratching the surface in terms of the innovations and use cases that we've seen.
And then also for you, Kacey, there's a question from Josephine here that says, is there an RSD library that has been shared that we can try or use, kind of bake into our metadata in our own digital badges?
Yes, so there were several libraries that were constructed as part of the pilots in the spring, and I think we would be happy to outline what those are and share. That's definitely a data set that's available and ready to use. I know that there are libraries at WGU that we have and we're ready to publish as open skills. So I would say if there's an area that you're interested in exploring, but you're not sure if there's an RSD library out there yet to connect it, raise your hand. Let us know, because there might be some RSDs laying in wait for your project that can be leveraged.
And then we've got a question here. I'll open this up to the panel from Yusuf, who asks, do we need to hire developers or technical staff? I mean, what does the collaboration fully entail if maybe we're not prepared, or do we need to be prepared to sort of mount something technical?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the scope of the pilot that you are looking to implement. If you are interested in creating an RSD library, but it makes more sense for your organization right now to publish to the OSN instance, there should be little technical lift. If you are looking to stand up your own instance of OSMT and publish your library there and integrate it into digital badges through a digital badging platform that you are using internally, there's probably a lift there. I know that OSN is planning to support a limited number of pilots in terms of technical assistance for standing up OSMT instances. So I think the short answer to that is it depends on what you're planning to do. Dream big, put together your proposal, and we'll see what we can support.
And Rebecca from Expedia, she asks, or makes this the comment that our focus would be to get our technical skills libraries built and then work with content vendors to give us excellent and deeply aligned content to those skills. Does this model fit into what you would consider a collaborative? Just trying to make sure that she's understanding.
I think so, yes. That has been a lot of the work that we have been exploring in our own use case at WGU, is creating our open libraries of rich skills descriptors, and then for our programs that we are looking to build, working with content providers to make sure that the content that we are choosing is directly aligning to those employer validated RSDs. So that is the piece that really makes all of this powerful. It's the piece that connects the dots. It's not just the open data, but what you're doing after it to drive well-aligned for academic institutions or for employer training programs, well-aligned training that is going to meet the needs of employers, whether they are external or you as an employer.
And I would add to that too, for Rebecca and anybody else, that these are the conversations that you should start having and start reaching out with content providers to see if there is an interest and a possibility in joining a collaborative together, because that's the work that we're doing, and why we're allowing more time between now and the kickoff is to see those conversations and see what's possible, because we never know what's possible until we try it, and in a lot of cases it's just working with the right team to make sure that what it is you're hoping for aligns with what somebody else is hoping for, and ultimately create that micro ecosystem that's a smaller piece of the larger ecosystem. And I think even in the chat here, there are some other questions about alignment, and we won't get too far down that tangent right now, but ultimately we are all trying to speak the same language, but we are coming from different dialects, and really doing a lot of that technical work here in these groups. But then also there's a ton of work that has been done after the pilots leading up to this to make all that work together. And that's what we're really hoping to do. So start those conversations now, reach out to potential partners now, and put them on the application if they're willing to dive in and do some work.
Yeah, that's a great call out. We did have a small handful of pilots in the spring that did partner with education content providers that we saw really having some great outcomes for that. So that is definitely a great opportunity to continue to build that alignment to marketable skills and ensuring that we've got the educational resources to support students in achieving those. So great question.
One thing that I would just add here too is, this is not a zero-sum game. Like, everybody benefits from this. And the most powerful collaboratives I think that could be pulled together are ones that include a cross sector of organizations. Can you get an education or training institution with an employer, HRIS systems? Like, how cross-functional can you make these collaboratives to actually realize the goal of highly valued market relevant RSDs and their application across the board for different use cases in hiring and education alike. So really think about that with your collaboratives, is what kind of cross-functional teams, cross-sector teams can you pull together to get the most power out of it?
And Naomi makes the question, is there a way that we can highlight those who participated in the first round of pilots and their collections libraries that newcomers may want to collaborate with to implement those libraries so that relationships can be brokered? And I will just say to that the OSN website has been refreshed and we're adding content, new content, as well as kind of restructuring some of the old. And a listing of all those who participated in the past pilots, as well as a summary of their work, is now available under the Our Work tab on the website. So I would direct new people to dive in as a starting point there to learn a little bit about some of the activities in the spring pilots. But I now turn it back over to the panel. If somebody wants to know more about the spring pilots and some of the work that took place there, is there anything that you can share with us about some of that matchmaking or some of the hybridization between new endeavors and the people who have run the track once before?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in on that, Christian, and I put in the chat there too, and I'm glad to see Allison adding it as well. But the chat has really been lighting up with a lot of people who are directly involved with some of the spring pilots. I know Michael J, and Naomi Boyer, Taylor Kendall, Matthew Gee are a number of people in the chat there, and those organizations that you mentioned and some of the summaries that are listed. Those are great people to talk to, even if you don't end up partnering with them. Just having a conversation to learn a little more about their work and how they align what their organization's goals are with what the goals of the OSN and the collaborative projects are. I think in some cases it feels like running parallel tracks, but starting to have those conversations will pretty quickly highlight that we are all doing similar work in different areas, and we're trying to align that for the greater good of the larger ecosystem, which is why these standards are open and why the publishing process, the OSMT tool, all of this is freely available. And we are supporting anybody's work who's trying to implement in meaningful ways to ultimately impact the end users, which are those individuals who are full of skills and looking for opportunity. That's really what we're working for. So without giving a list of names right here in the chat of those people, there are people in the chat who have been throwing out their email addresses. Please take one of those, email them, set up a time to chat, even if it's a 15-minute conversation, to really learn more and ask those questions. Just have an open discussion about what it is you're hoping to do, because that's how this all started at the beginning, and that's the work that will continue to happen throughout the process.
And one final comment, question here from Zarin. While open skills libraries may be a new idea, there are already a number of companies that have been working toward the mission of OSN, i.e. MC Burning Glass. There are also an abundance of skills frameworks such as ONET and organization-specific skills taxonomies. The current lack of consistency across the economy is due to the lack of a common framework or translation service across different skills ontologies, as far as I understand. Is OSN trying to tackle that by incrementally developing a library that is industry-led and increasing adoption, or is the underlying architecture an actual network which will ultimately act like a universal skills fiber optic and be the backbone for skills verification?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think, I think the dreamy dream would be, could we get to a day where everyone understands when an employer says we need software engineers with good communication, that everyone across the board, all employers, higher ed, we're all speaking the same language about what that means? Maybe. But a step in the right direction is to get us at least expressing those skills in a machine readable format, so they're at least structured similarly. So when we talk about speaking a similar language, we are from the schema, from the data structure perspective. Then as these open libraries start to come online and we've got organizations that are collaboratively publishing open skills libraries to target specific sectors, I think ultimately what you will see is some of those sort of rise to the top as the industry accepted or the most sought after libraries to align to. So I am with you on that fiber optic network. Could we get to a point where that is possible? I think we can, but we're just at the beginning. So Sarah, Colin, anything you'd add to that?
I think
Yeah,
you're exactly right, Kacey. I mean, and that's really the goal and the open part around the open skills network is that we are looking to create a standard that organizations can adopt to really be able to drive forward the interoperability and the machine readability of how we talk about skills. We absolutely recognize there's a lot of organizations, a lot of entities, starting to or have been in the skill space for quite some time. But really the goal is, and the reason why the open piece around the Open Skills Network is so critical is how can we start to, yeah, I think to Kacey's point, use the same syntax. So that way, as we start to move forward with skills and all of these different entities, that we can start to connect the dots a little bit easier. It's, I guess, sort of like the IEEE standards for being able to communicate skills across the different organizations.
yeah. The last thing I would add is to highlight the work of the IEEE working groups. There are a number of groups that are establishing standards, global standards for the interoperability of data, specifically with respect to learner records. And they are trying to create alignment. And those working groups are comprised of individuals from all across the globe who are meeting regularly, creating and crafting those standards and going through the voting process to have those be established as global standards, universal standards to guide this work. And happy to connect you with any of those working groups and share some of the efforts that are being led to do exactly what you're talking about, which is create alignment and interoperability between those data sets and standards. Yeah, some are getting put in the chat here as we talk. So thanks for sharing those too.
Perfect. And as a final question, as we wrap up, there has been actually several questions that have come in regarding OSMT and wanting to know when that is coming and how it will be released. Any comments or illumination that any of our panel can provide on the open source code that will be OSMT?
Kacey, do you want to take that one? I think you've been involved in more of the recent conversations.
Yeah, so what was the specific question about the code, Christian? I
Sure.
apologize.
Yeah.
When is OSMT coming?
Yep. When is
Oh,
OSMT coming? We want OSMT. We want
yes.
OSMT.
Great question. So it is coming. If you are interested in OSMT in the short term, my recommendation would be that you submit a collaborative project application. to be an early adopter. I know that for anyone that has released open software, open source projects, it is a big lift. And so we are making progress. I would imagine that you will certainly see it by the end of the calendar year. But if you are anxious for OSMT, which we hope that you are, and want to be an early adopter, submit an application and be one of the early adopters into that effort so that you can get access to it sooner rather than later.
The other thing I'll mention is that I believe our plan is to talk more about OSMT in our next webinar in October. So there will be a lot more information, specifics around release dates. I know that there were some questions around publishing to CTDL, the registry. So I don't know, Kacey, if you've got an answer to that, but I know we'll have more information in our OSMT specific webinar next month.
Yeah, we'll likely need to get our tech team who is managing OSMT for us to give us an idea on timeline for that. But we can make sure that happens for the next one.
Perfect. So in our final moments here, if our panel has any final thoughts or comments regarding the skills collaboratives and this open call for applications, I'd like to just open up the floor and just allow you to share with us some closing thoughts if you have any.
I'll just offer that from the spring pilots, we learned a tremendous amount, and it was through the efforts of the pilot teams. And that has shaped the way that this process will go for these collaboratives. And it is the people that are on this call and the people that will fill out applications that ultimately are going to help to find the success of these for our end users and our stakeholders. And so if there's any question about it, reach out and connect with somebody. But LEF in combination and collaboration with OSN will provide a tremendous amount of support to the collaborative projects and all the individuals and teams that are selected. So we're excited to work with you all, and we look forward to seeing applications come through.
Yeah, we're just excited to keep up the momentum. We had a great spring series and we're excited to get this kicked off again. So especially, I think, given where we are, the OSN, we just hit our 1-year anniversary this September. And so reflecting back on all the work that we've done to date, as well as, these exciting projects we have moving forward, we're really expecting to pick up the momentum here and really being able to drive usage and adoption. So really excited to get this going and so glad you're here. The chat has been super engaging, really fun to watch. Looks like we might have some really great pilots and collaborative projects coming our way. So thanks to everybody. If you guys have questions, anything that's not answered in this webinar or things that are not clear once the information and application get posted on the website, probably sometime next week, don't hesitate to reach out and we're happy to support. So thank you. And Allison just posted the email alias into the chat. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you, everybody. We look forward to hearing from you. And again, just to echo what Sarah said, if you have questions, comments, if I missed your question, please do not throw the rotten tomato at the panel, throw it at me. Submit it to info@openskills.org and we'll get back to you. And please do visit the website. All the information regarding the application and information will be posted shortly. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.